Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Inside Lowell Daily Pulse, the Tuesday, June 23rd edition of the Daily Pulse. I'm your host, Teddy Panos, coming here from the WellPoint Studios here in beautiful, historic downtown Lowell. Today, on the show that keeps its finger on the pulse of Lowell and the world around it, we're going to look at the world around it, but not too far away, because we're simply going to go across the Merrimack River and across town lines and head into the town of Dracut, my old stomping grounds, as a matter of fact, where today is actually an election day, a special election day in the town of Dracut. And who better to chat with about that election than our special guest host today, Phil Thibault, a guy very well known, a name very familiar in Dracut political circles, run for office on multiple occasions, serve on a bunch of committees and whatnot. So I figured, hey, let's find out what's going on here and why Dracut's having an election on June 23rd.
So thank you very much for the invite. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you here, Phil. It hit me when you came in and you kind of said, oh, this is a nice space. He's never been here before, even though PT Architects, your company, Phil Thibault Architects, has been one of our sponsors here at Inside Lowell from day one. So what the hell was I doing not dragging your ass in here sooner?
Well, what was I doing not bugging you to have me come in?
You should have. You've written a number of op-eds and special pieces on different issues in the town. And I always admire your kind of your style and the way you approach issues. You're thoughtful, agree or disagree with your take on them. You always have them pretty well researched with a lot of factual things to consider in there.
Yeah. I always like to look at what's referred to as the Iron Man argument or the strong man argument rather than the straw man or a weak argument. I mean, I honestly try to bolster my opposition's arguments from my own because I need that strong wall to look at.
All right. Well, Today we're going to look at a vote to build a new school in the town of Dracut. It actually melds two schools into one just a block away from where I grew up. And
we both grew up.
That's right. And as I found out, you grew up on Greenmont as well. So we'll talk about that, what we can expect today, any surprises based on a town meeting that I thought was actually very surprising, what this issue might say and portend about Dracut's future, and then ultimately, what is Dracut's plan? What is Dracut's future? So lots of stuff to get into with Phil Thibault today, and we're going to get right into all of it. But first, let me thank my Daily Pulse sponsor, Ray Booten, who's a licensed realtor in Massey and New Hampshire, a certified appraiser in both states as well. So if you're looking to buy or sell a home, a business, or a commercial property, remember, Ray Booten gets results. You can find him online at realestaterayBooten.com. That's realestaterayBooten.com. I also want to thank our friends at WellPoint for hosting us here in the WellPoint Studios. It's the only health plan offering healthcare benefits exclusively to Massachusetts GIC members at WellPoint. Your whole health is their whole point. We thank Ray, we thank WellPoint, some other sponsors. We'll give them a verbal shout out in a little bit. You see their logo scrolling across your screen. Let's get right into it. All right, election day today. Polls already open in Dracut. Did you get in early before the long lines formed?
I did not. They opened up at 8 o'clock and they're going till 8 o'clock tonight.
So 12 hours of voting.
12 hours, yeah. Which
was the first thing that caught my interest, because when you had your town election in May, right? It's always
May, that's correct.
I think you closed the polls at what, 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock?
4 o'clock.
So does that speak to the magnitude of this issue, to the expected larger turnout? I'm just curious why close the polls at 8 as opposed to the afternoon.
Yeah, so the municipal election had early voting. The week before, it had mail-in voting and absentee, of course. So it gave a good time period to be able to cast your vote. So with the election on a Saturday, the previous year in Dracut, we also had it on a Saturday. The polls were open till 6, and you really didn't have a lot of people participating. Actually, after 2 o'clock. So this year they decided to cut it back to 4 o'clock and try to, I guess, save money, because Drake, it's all about saving the money.
$1 million in the red, and that 10,000 you're going to save.
You know, I tell people that democracy is not the cheapest form of government. A dictatorship would be.
It would.
And we could save a lot of money.
Well, some people think we already have it.
Yeah.
So the ballot today, it's not. No, we're not voting for Board of Selectmen. We're not voting for school committee or a mayor or anything as such. It's a one-issue election.
One question on the ballot. Do you want to vote to have a debt exclusion from Proposition 2.5 to allow to borrow a sum of money to build a Campbell School project, $177 million.
$177 million new Campbell School, it's touted, which would replace not only the old Campbell School, which is pretty old and obsolete at
that
this
was
point.
built in 72 or 73, I believe.
So it would tear that down, build it adjacent to the site, and then kind of repurpose the existing building. But the other interesting little twist is that it would also move the Greenmont Avenue School from the heart of Dracut Center, right where I grew up and you grew up, and it would move that over to the new Campbell School, thereby leaving the Greenmont for some future use.
Future purpose.
All right. So I want to talk about it, because to me, those are the most fascinating things. And I think, unless my Dracut radar is way off, that these are discussions that the town is going to have based on what we anticipate today, which is largely based on a town meeting. So before you had to get to today, there was a first step. This had to pass town meeting, this issue, by what? Was it 2/3?
2/3 vote.
A much higher bar.
Yep.
And it did. I was shocked at that. The Dracut that I remember was not going to allow this to happen at town meeting, certainly not by a 2/3 majority. And yet, you said about 800 people showed.
So that was interesting to myself, that they had initially anticipated over 2,000 residents coming in for town meeting. So not only did they, have the auditorium, or essentially the theater complex, performing arts, I think they call it now. They also opened up the gymnasium that would hold another 1,200 people or so. So they were anticipating 2,000 people coming out, and then only 800 people show up. So that I found that to be somewhat telling of what this issue is really getting at.
Yeah, so interesting in that of those, so it was about 3/4 of the voters at the town meeting were in support of this project,
Correct.
which surprised me. Now, is that how today we should expect today to go? By the way, today it's a simple majority. It's a one more vote gets it to pass, one less vote, and it fails. So you don't need the 2/3. But
Correct.
Based on the people who showed up at town meeting, you have overwhelming support. But 800 versus an anticipated 2,000. Do you think that the 2,000 who were expected at the town meeting will screw it, will kill it at the at the ballot box if it gets there? What's going to happen?
Yeah,
today?
so there's always been this talk about it, a new demographic coming into Dracut, younger kids moving in. Of course, you have an older population that isn't staying around anymore. And so are these younger residents with new families and children and wanting to grow and stay in the community, I would hope, are they going to come out and show up? So, I mean, what would typically be deemed the school parents, and will they show up? And I think they have been very vocal in this past, month or so since the town meeting, and just bringing up the whole project itself.
So is that the main demographic pushing this in support of this, or are you sensing that maybe there are other folks in the town, perhaps not? So the older generation folks whose kids have come and gone from the school system or never were there, that's certainly a voting block and whatnot, and they generally don't want to spend any money, and certainly not on schools which they believe they won't see a direct benefit from.
Yes and no, because I think I think there's a large majority of that older demographic that know that, hey, our parents and our grandparents sacrificed for us, so we would have schools and built schools.
Sure.
So I mean, we had the Campbell School that was built in '73. The Greenmont was built in '27, so just before the Depression, and it changed to a high school in 35. So they had to do a complete renovation of the building in 33. So during the height of the Depression, we had residents in Dracut saying, we need a school. We need to spend the money. So that's interesting. And I think there's a lot of people within that same sort of demographic that understand that, hey, you're always paying it forward, and we need to pay it forward now.
Right. And by the way, these battles are not new to Dracut. No. They're had in multiple towns. Hell, cities have them to some degree, and will probably always continue to have them. But you touched on something that's interesting. Has Dracut itself changed based on the types of people moving into the town, and quite frankly, the sheer numbers? I think when I was a student in the Dracut school system there, we were looking at it was a population 18,000 in the 80s. We're what, close to
35,000.
Yeah, so we've more than doubled, and growing. There is a lot of land out there, and some folks think it's going to grow a lot more.
Yeah. And that's really just land management. I've been saying, and through the master plan that was adopted back in 2020, we can continue to grow, but we should grow vertically rather than just sprawl out. And we can save the farmlands and open space that really makes Dracut what Dracut is. Mm-hmm. I mean, coming down Mammoth Road, you pass by the Richardson Farm, Beaverbrook Farm. And it's all this wide open space, and it's just gorgeous. And that's a gateway into the city, into Lowell. Into Dracut. The whole city thing is, I suppose, another thing that we can just discuss. But we have these gateways into Dracut. I mean, Bridge Street. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a town center, and it certainly portrays itself that way. If you're coming from the west, you're coming in off of Broadway through Route 113, and again, you're hit with farmland all over the place, and it's certainly nice to be able to save that, because that's what we believe Dracut is. But you also have to recognize what the other parts of Dracut are too, and you can't disregard them.
Sure. Yeah, and for the longest time, the mentality in the town was we're staying at 15,000.
I think a lot of people think that we're still there.
Yeah, I think so. And yet, this issue here, is it as much about the future of Dracut and potential expansion and the need for schools, or is it simply a matter of, hey, today these two school buildings just can't get it cut anymore, and whatever Dracut's future holds in terms of growth, we still need this school? What's your take on it?
Mike, as always, it's kind of like a sprinkling of everything. I have been promoting the new building is a project that I think we need in Dracut. And of course, $177 million is the budget cost. Dracut's portion of that is going to be about $90 million. We're getting a grant from the Massachusetts School Building Authority of some $83 million. There are grants for energy efficiencies that we're looking at that might be $5 to $7 million more. So there's a tremendous cost to it, but there's also a great value to it. And I think I have been promoting the value. I believe it was, I forget, Mark Twain or another writer has said, remarked that a cynic is somebody who knows the cost of everything and the value of nothing. So, I mean, I hear opponents saying that's too much money, we can't afford it. Even during the school building committee process that we were going through, we were sending our final choice to the MSBA, Massachusetts School Building Authority. And 𝐏𝐡𝐢𝐥, our town manager, sits in that committee too. And she had said that Dracut can't afford this, so she's voting no. And I said to her, you are in an unenviable position. I absolutely understand that. But likewise, it's not the town of Dracut that needs to afford the school. It's the citizens. So we should send it forward so they have their vote on it. And today they do have their vote on it.
So you mentioned the cost of it. I'm depending on which site comes into my algorithm on Facebook, I'm seeing widely divergent numbers. I'm seeing $150 a year to the taxpayer. I'm seeing $1,000 a year it will cost the average taxpayer. My hunch is the answer is somewhere in the middle. If I have those numbers, we're going to end up at about $500 to $600 per year per taxpayer, which isn't an insignificant amount.
No, absolutely not. I mean,
but my question is, what's the cost of not doing that? Because we always talk about the cost of doing something, but there's also a cost of inaction. So how dire is the need? I've never been inside of those schools. I've played outside the Greenmont. I've played basketball outside the Campbell, but I did most of my, all of my up to 6th grade. I did it at the Hellenic in Lowell before going over to the Dracut Middle School, which by the way is a completely different complex as well. So you know, proof that the town does change and needs it at some point along the way.
I think the high school was done about 12 years ago, and that was overwhelmingly supported by the community, and that added to the high school complex. It added, I think, about 150,000 square feet of new educational space. So what we did over at the high school is area-wise comparable to what we're doing over at the Campbell School.
Sure. But I think you also added an elementary school. I believe the building that I was going to for quote-unquote middle school in 7th grade is now some level of an elementary school.
So there's been a lot of
𝐏𝐡𝐢𝐥 Junior High.
Yeah, there's a lot of jostling around. Back in, I think, the year 2000 or 2001 or something like that, they constructed what is now the Richardson School, and that's a middle school, 6 through 8, and then they jostled around the Inglesby and the Brookside, and they kind of redistricted, if you want. But back to your question about what's the cost of inaction. So the architectural team that we have for this whole feasibility study did look at, okay, if we do nothing, which the MSBA refers to as the local option, because they are not participating in any of it. Yeah. This is all borne by the local district. Combined, both the Campbell School and the Greenmont School would in today's dollars be about $80 million.
Is that necessary?
And they did not do a projection of, okay, if you spread it over 10 years, what the final cost will be.
Okay. Is that $80 million necessary? Are the schools in such disrepair that you would need to put, well, let's divvy it up evenly, 40 and 40 into each school? Or can you buy yourself a few more years and see what the future might hold?
So the architectural team did tell us that the buildings are not in dire need of all the repairs, structural repairs. These buildings are not falling down. Okay. But the Campbell School leaks like a sieve. The roof needs to be repaired.
We're very familiar with that here in Lowell.
Yes. As a matter of fact, Dracut took place in an accelerated repair program that the MSBA had to put new roofs on both the Inglesby and the Brookside. And we were lucky enough to hit the bidding cycle just right. And I think the total project cost there was about $5 million. I would not anticipate we would be so lucky in trying to re-roof the Campbell. So that could be, an $8 million project on its own that has to be paid for. How? Right. And so that's just one item. A project of that size, then because of its cost, starts to trigger other things in the building code, in the Massachusetts Architectural Access Board regulations, essentially ADA requirements. So if you hit those thresholds, now you have to start going through and doing a whole bunch of ADA stuff within the schools. The Campbell School isn't fully accessible. It would have to be made fully accessible. Greenmont School certainly is not accessible at all. I would almost say there are probably seven different levels in one floor.
Yeah, it looks from the outside, it looks like a square building, but it's not.
But it really isn't. So, again, the accessibility issues start coming up, and now when you start throwing in those monies, there's the new energy codes that have been adopted for the past, I think, 2 years, very stringent. So, okay, now that needs to be done because you're triggering other thresholds. It could be argued that just replacing the roof means that you have to make the building compliant now because of all the thresholds that we keep tripping.
Sure.
And if that's the case, I mean, you're looking at certainly the $40 million almost all at once. And then because you're doing those renovations, you're actually decreasing the size of the school that for population wise. So now your classes are smaller, or the areas are smaller, but you still have to fit all those kids in there. So where do you send them?
Some more modulars at the
more modulars. And what does a modular cost? Probably $5 to $10 million each.
Yeah. So the other point is that I guess you could theoretically, though, apply for, you said they need about $80 million worth of work. You could theoretically apply for some of those MSBA accelerated repair programs, or because you've gotten this far down this process, you're already wet, so you might as well go swimming in the pool. What can you say? All right, well, we've looked at it, and we'd rather go for the roof repair so that the Campbell doesn't leak, etc.
As I said, the MSBA considers this a local option because so
you can't sneak it around.
They have now deemed that the buildings do not meet their criteria for an education. So they are not putting any money into it other than what it would cost to bring it up fully. So essentially the process that we've gone through with our feasibility study. The feasibility study, we certainly looked at an ad reno like we did with the high school or a brand new building, and the committee felt that a brand new building was the best option.
Okay. How do you think when they start counting the votes tonight, what do you expect, Phil?
I think we're going to have a project. I think it passes. Dracut has been historically very receptive to a debt exclusion, bricks and mortar. They have something tangible they can feel and touch. There's I think only one project that has not passed for debt exclusion. That was the town hall, and because we were under a consent agreement because of accessibility, we got it built through the budget, which was remarkable. That was a $10 million project.
Okay. So I happen to agree. I just think based on the town meeting results and also kind of where people are with schools nowadays and the value they place on them, I think we'll be talking tomorrow about the fact that it passed, which will bring up a whole bunch of other questions. Number one, how definitive are the current plans? Because I looked at them and they are kind of interesting, and they lend themselves to a lot of questions in and of themselves. And ultimately, what does it mean for the future of Dracut? Going to get into all of that with our guest, Phil 𝐏𝐡𝐢𝐥, today. And we'll do it in just a quick second. Let me first thank all of my podcast sponsors here. We've got my Daily Pulse sponsor, Ray Booten, licensed realtor in Mass and New Hampshire. Find him online, realestaterayBooten.com. Ray Booten gets results. We also want to thank WellPoint for hosting us here in the WellPoint studios. At WellPoint, your whole health is their whole point. Washington Savings Bank, banking that goes the extra mile. Make the switch now to Washington Savings Bank. TMI Properties, TMI Cares, managing and developing their own properties for over 30 years. They have availability in multiple locations and across multiple price points. So now's the time to find your perfect space with TMI. Mahoney Oil, providing warmth and protection to generations of families throughout Greater Lowell and Southern New Hampshire since 1925. The Greater Lowell Community Foundation, improving the quality of life in our communities through strategic, impactful philanthropy. And by Christine Metros Natali, providing expertise in all aspects of real estate sales. Sell your home with one of New England's top brokers over the last 40 years. Learn more online at homesbychristine.com. Those are our podcast sponsors. We've got a bunch of other sponsors out there at Inside Lowell. One of them, as we mentioned, PT Architect. Come on, Phil, give yourself a plug. You've been doing architecture now for
a long time. I've been registered since 1995. Registered in 5 states: Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Maine, Kentucky, and Florida.
Right. And I think the most recent project of yours that caught the public's attention was that Suffolk Place
on
property that the Merrimack Valley Housing Partnership is turning into affordable housing.
Yeah, on the corner of Suffolk and Market Street. Great project. The developer was great to work with, had a vision for some affordability in the Lowell area, and it also took advantage of the MBTA communities or commuter community zoning that Dracut that Lowell offers, and so there was no parking required, which of course makes it easier to fit on the site.
It certainly does. If folks do have a vision for a property, a home, a commercial venture, anything, and they want to get in touch with you, how do they do so?
I can be reached at my office, 978-455-3072, or pt at ptarchitect.com.
All right. Awesome. Okay. So, here's the site plan that I really delved into it yesterday for the first time before I called you to try to set today up. But out on first of all, I was kind of confused. That 7 on the blue basketball courts thing I originally thought was a 1 and was the existing school site. So it kind of confused me. But the existing school is where number 2 is on the left of the screen, and then 5 is some recreational fields. We've got the basketball courts, the blue number 7. You've got a little parking. You've got a baseball field, etc. So the school is actually going to shift way to the right, or it looks like way to the right on this. How far are we talking? How far are they moving this away to where the number 1 is?
I think it's about 800 feet.
800.
So
okay,
it's a significant distance.
Okay, so but it's not a completely different site. It's in the same area.
No, and so when the whole feasibility issue started, we were looking at, I think, 4 different sites and different scenarios, and and then for the Campbell School, Dennis Peendak is on the building committee. So he's a great wealth of knowledge, having been town manager for nearly 30 years. And he had mentioned, there's this land that's behind the Campbell School that the town owns, and it's like, there is. And so the developer, was looking at that.
So all that whole newly developed area that we're looking at on the right here on the site plan, is that currently woods? Or is that something else at the moment? Is it trees like everything that's surrounding it?
There is a sharp incline on the side of the road where you can see what would look like woods and wetland. But other than that, the whole area is kind of a plateau on top of that hill. So it's for the most part all dry and very good developable land.
Okay. So as I look at it, the number 8 kind of repeats itself. The parking area will kind of stay the same. There will be a new number 12 pre-K playground. There will be another lucky number 13 playground. What I don't see, is the place that I used to hang out, the basketball courts. I don't see a current on the current school site or the future school site. I don't see any basketball courts. I don't see a baseball field. Will those remain where they are?
Yes, they are. So those are existing, and they'll be the basketball courts will be resurfaced, and the baseball field will be re-landscaped if you want.
Okay. Is that part of the $180 million project? Okay, so the MSBA is helping fund that. Okay,
that's correct. So the that $177 million is turnkey. So everything that you see there is going to be accomplished. Okay. The Campbell School, the existing Campbell School will be raised, and then that whole area will be landscaped. It hasn't been fully determined what that large area will be. It could remain an open park. It could be an additional athletic field. I think during the process of with an architect would typically call design development, we'll figure out what that will be and then go to that end.
Okay, but as I look at it there, I'm like, well, that's some developable land that can turn into tax revenue. If you're inclined, if Dracut is inclined to forget a lot of what it was in its open space, I mean, we could maybe, there's a little road there that would keep the basketball courts and the baseball fields separated, and you could maybe put out an RFP and see if you can get a developer.
Absolutely. You could ask for developers to give us a proposal. We can give specifications of these are the guidelines we want you to follow. I don't see that happening. Certainly not until we finish up the design development, because this school is proposed to have geothermal heating and cooling. So now we need geothermal wells.
Okay.
So where are the wells going?
Gotcha.
Certainly they can go under play areas, or they could go into that location itself.
So that's the part that kind of piqued my interest, because there was nothing about what's the future of if that land over here by the Campbell School, numbers 5, 2, and whatever, are soon become vacant, and also the Greenmont Avenue School. There is no concrete plan that people are voting for tonight. We will get the new school, meld the two schools, and in their place will go A, B, or C.
Correct.
That's not on the ballot today. It's simply, let's build this and we figure out the rest in the future.
That is correct. So
okay. There's no ulterior motive here. Nobody greased a few palms.
No.
Behind the scenes this is the Dracut mentality, though. It's also the Lowell mentality. There are no side deals or anything in place that we're aware of.
That's correct.
Okay. So in other words, you're going to have a bunch of different battles then on what this will become.
I can certainly foresee that. And the Greenmont School certainly would be a nice area to develop residentially. Sure. I mean, there's a large parking lot there now that could be developed into further residential units and have a nice courtyard. I mean, it could be done very nicely.
It sounds like the Campbell School, though, between the desire to keep basketball, baseball courts there, and then needing to place some kind of modern day heating and cooling.
Yeah, I mean that's
going to be used for that overall good, right?
Yeah, Kenwood is certainly squarely a residential area, and I would not see that being further developed. That could certainly just be a nice open park area for the neighborhood. So
okay, the fun is at the Greenmont School, though. You're in the center of town. You've talked about the Bridge Street corridor into Dracut. That's that and Lakeview Avenue are your two commercial areas of Dracut, if you want to call it that. We just saw just recently money and funding come in and approval for a new kind of senior housing, the first senior housing built in forever at the end of Greenmont, where it meets up with Bridge Street. So it does stand to reason that if you're going to expand some type of housing, or dare I say maybe even some kind of commercial venture, that would be a prime spot for it. Is that the ultimate goal, or is there a way that Dracut still needs a school and some kind of educational facility?
There has been talk about much like the Parker Ave School and that Dracut leases to, I believe it's CTI, doing a very similar thing, trying to lease it to another education collaborative and generating an income based on that. I have had some discussions with some of the members of the school committee and suggested that if they do something like that, why not take the money that's being generated and apply that back to essentially the debt exclusion to try to pay it off sooner, even for everybody.
Yeah, I was thinking if you turn it into some kind of taxable developed property, that money could theoretically help offset a rent, a lease,
Yeah,
is a
absolutely.
direct payment into that, and it doesn't disappear into the town treasury and then go God knows where. Is that the next big political battle once this is settled and you firm up the plans? By the way, this plan that I showed, it's not completely final, right? There's room to make some adjustments.
That is correct. So this is what is referred to as our schematic design, which is about 15% complete. So there is a lot of
85% of work is good to go, right?
Absolutely. There's a lot of work. This asks all the consulting engineers, heating and, what are we thinking? Electrical, what are we thinking? It's just broad strokes. The design development gets into the particulars of it.
Okay. Roads feeding into this area here. I saw some stuff on social media. This could create some traffic issues above and beyond what already exists. There's some there's like a cut through to the Merrimack River. I did see one schematic photo that showed what looked like a body of water. What am I looking at out there, Phil?
So at the top of the side of the Campbell, that's Methuen Street,
Yep.
And then Bellevue is still used to access the Campbell School site.
That's the number 3 there.
That is
at the top.
Oh, gee, I need my glass.
I
need my glass.
Up here,
that is Methuen. Okay. And then number 4, I believe.
Okay. Oh, down at the bottom.
Yeah, that's Bellevue.
Gotcha.
That's Bellevue. So those access points are still going to be utilized. Methuen Street would be utilized by parents for their vehicular drop off and pickup. Number 4 is actually going to be used for the buses to drop off and pick up. And they'll be separated at the building itself. So the parents will have an area to drop off. The buses will have an area to drop off.
Right, I noticed that in the plans. They separate the two.
You separate the traffic.
Which is actually pretty good because I remember when my dad would drop me off at the old Dracut High getting in the way of all the buses, which
absolutely.
was not fun.
And so the lobby that the kids enter is the same lobby. So they're just entering it from different sides of the building.
Okay, so the minimal impact, would you say, to the surrounding neighborhood?
So one reason to place the building as far back as it was is that it allows all the queuing for the parents to be on site now. So it will actually lessen the impact of vehicular traffic on both Methuen and Bellevue. Bellevue is probably the worst. That backs up all the way to Merrimack Ave or Route 110.
And other than a couple of homes on the far, kind of the top center there, and then off to the middle right, there isn't much else there that's going to be effective.
No.
And there's no entry or exit points anywhere near there.
That is correct. That is correct. And so there has been discussion about a second access point for emergency vehicles, and on the southern portion of the site, I'm trying to see what that number is. Is it 6? I feel like I'm taking an eye test here. Well, so at that, just below that is a portion of land that was used as open space for an open space subdivision. So there is talk about being able to put a small access way through there so they can connect up with, I think it might be Congress or. So that would
be for emergency.
That would be for emergencies only.
Okay. Greenmont, in some way, shape, or form, unless that's kept as an educational facility of some sort, that will create disruption to that area. I don't know if the traffic will be any worse than it is with a school there. So. No,
so I mean, if it's residential, I mean, certainly, there's the 2 cars that are needed per unit by the zoning, but I wouldn't see that generating a lot of traffic in the area. Certainly, in the morning when people are leaving, but it dissipates very quickly. And when they're coming home, they come home at different hours and not like a morning rush hour type of thing. So I don't think there'd be a tremendous impact in traffic there.
Right. Can the town afford this? Bill, I know, they'd have to pay $80 million versus $95 million of $180 million project. Can the town, given what I'm reading and hearing about its financial situation right now, can it afford any of it?
Well, I guess I'll go back to what we originally discussed. It's not the town that needs to afford this; it's the citizens, and they have to make the decision if they want to afford it. If you look squarely at just the town coffers, No, the town can't afford to keep itself open to begin with. I mean, they're borrowing some $5 million out of free cash this year to pay for the budget. That's not sustainable. So, I mean, there's larger global issues that need to be rectified. Having said that, I think the value of this school should not be passed up.
Okay. Is any of this, by the way, this project put at risk by Dracut's to this point? And I know there's been some movement there that I want to talk about, but to this point, a lack of compliance with the MBTA zoning.
No, I have been,
whatever Dracut does on that, this project, if approved.
I have been very stalwart in asking that question repeatedly, and to the point of saying to our OPM, our owner's project manager, I want to see this in writing. I mean, you keep telling me that the MSBA is saying their funding is not contingent on MBTA compliance. I want to see that in writing.
I would agree, because listen, if I'm Maura Healey and I want to force compliance, I'm looking at this at Drake, especially if it passes tonight, and I'm calling tomorrow morning and saying, "Oh, just so you know, our $80 million is not coming in unless you've been told." Not an issue,
correct?
But it hasn't been put in writing from Deb Goldberg or Maura Healey or anybody who writes and signs the paychecks.
The MSBA, which is under the treasurer,
Deb Goldberg, yes,
has assured Dracut that it is not contingent. Has actually provided us with the written grant agreement that only needs signatures now. And really, I think they may have already attached their signature. It's just waiting for the town's signature. Okay. And they're waiting, and our town manager, who has to sign it, is waiting for essentially this vote.
The vote. Okay. So that seems safe. Bigger picture, MBTA communities. Looks like there's a little movement, and Tewksbury
small movements.
Tewksbury bent the knee, if I may use it. They actually came up with a specific site that different from their original proposal, I believe. But it looks like they're going to get out of the doghouse.
I think it needs to go to their town meeting.
It does. So and right until that vote is taken. Dracut moved a little, flinched, moved. What did Dracut do exactly regarding MBTA?
I mean, I have somewhat disagreed with the whole tack that they have taken towards this, because it's been, well, the state can't tell us what to do, and they've kind of dug in their heels. And at the very beginning, I said, I think you're all looking at this the wrong way. You're almost looking at this as a punishment, where we should be looking at this as an opportunity to develop our economics. We get the choice to say where it is and what we want it to look like. I mean, a lot of the opponents keep fixated on, they can't tell us what to do. And where the MBTA communities is the law. It's fairly brief in its description. It gives you guidelines. Right. So now the state is telling us, or asking us, I should say, tell us what you want it to look like. We want you to say, this is the community we want you to build. Sure. They're not saying put up 6-story buildings. So I think Dracut is much like when your parents used to tell you, do this. It's, you could utilize what you're being told to your advantage. Sure. And so now all they're doing is, well, how can we design this district so nothing will ever get built? And that sends a different message to anybody who's looking to come into Dracut. Is like, I don't think they want us there. Right. Even businesses, I don't think they want us there.
So, it's funny, I heard a description of kind of the MBTA communities. It was from Bill Ricca's planner, or somebody in Bill Ricca mentioning it on WCAP radio. Said they liken the MBTA communities to when the parent tells the child, well, you decide what you want to eat, and the kid's having ice cream 3 meals a day and chocolate in between his snacks. Parent looks at that and says, okay, I'm still going to let you determine what you eat, but you have to pick one from this group, one from that group, one from the other. And I said, that's a simplistic, but actually a better way to explain.
It is very.
MBTA
I think it's very accurate. I think.
But does Dracut get it? Is Dracut ultimately going to find a way to, comply technically with the law, be restrictive enough to still be part of what Dracut has always been and wanted to be for the last 100 years? Or what's the final result here, Phil?
I'm not sure if I'm giving it even odds of passing a town meeting. So I'm not sure. There is still a good contingency of people that will say no means no. Right. No matter what you say or what you're going to restrict, they're going to just keep saying no, because you can't tell us what to do. And again, honestly, it's the law. I mean, you may not like it, but it really is. We want you to tell us what you want to do. And I think we lose the opportunity.
Okay. And yet the one thing I find interesting about this, at the same time that the school, this new demographic that you talked about, came forward and overwhelmingly a town meeting pushed the school. Town meeting overwhelmingly said, take your MBTA communities and shove it. I would think that those two forces are somewhat aligned, right? If you want more modern schools and you're a younger, younger demographic raising a family as opposed to one who's just riding off into the sunset, that you would politically approach MBTA communities kind of like you would with, it's expensive, but damn it, we need modern schools.
So
what's the split there?
I don't know. Maybe the MBTA was an awakening of this new demographic that, hey, you can't be taking away grants from us because we are a community that needs to have this money, and certainly housing is needed everywhere. And so I talk about, my two sons are still living with me, and I certainly enjoy having them around. But if they were to move out of the house, I mean, day one, they would probably need some $15,000 to $20,000 just to move out, because first month's rent, last month's rent, security deposits. What kind of furniture are you going to be on? I mean, milk crates and,
your couch
and boxes. Yeah, it's like. So I mean, it's really expensive for the kids just to get out of the house, and even though I like them there, at some point they got to get pushed out, because I want to be on my own for a little while.
I'm generally one who believes that you need to grow. I believe it for Lowell. I believe it for Dracut, and they don't necessarily have to be the same type of growth or pace of growth. But I believe that if you're not growing, you've gone backwards as a community, and you eventually decline to the point. I think we've kind of seen it with Dracut schools. The reputation of Dracut schools is not stellar, and I think that's hurting the town. But let me just play devil's advocate here for a second. So we have doubled the size of Dracut since I lived there, and then some. Yep. We're talking about growing it significantly more to fill this need for housing and to come into compliance with MBTA. But will that bring up other problems that Dracut is not equipped to handle? Does Dracut have the infrastructure? Does Dracut have the water sewer system? Do they have the roads to be able to handle as much growth as it's seen? Some would say they've barely been able to handle what they've gotten already for growth.
So as far as utilities, I believe that they have that ability to grow through the Dracut Water Supply District, and certainly the sewer infrastructure. I think 95% of the town is sewered at this point.
Is it that much?
Yeah, it is.
Holy smokes.
There's a couple of areas out.
I remember when they brought it to Thistle Street while I was a kid. Yeah.
In the northeast area of Dracut, closer to Methuen, that there are just so few houses out there that's not worth it.
Okay.
But I think it's about 95% sewered.
So they've already done a lot of that.
So they already have a lot of that infrastructure. I think a big issue that Dracut has going against it at the moment is their zoning bylaws that they were done back in '85, and it certainly wasn't about growth and economic development.
No.
So, I mean, it's remarkable that they really although they purport to have 3 residential zones, they all require 1 acre of land to build a house.
Right.
So, I mean, I live in one of the more densely populated areas, and I have one of the biggest yards in the neighborhood at 13,000 square feet. But I tell people by zoning, because zoning wants to meet its equilibrium, that my house should not be there because the lot's too small. So that kind of hits people a different way when they start considering that. But they need a. People keep talking about Dracut being, it's a drive-through right now. You're either leaving it or coming back to it, but we're not the destination. And I keep saying to them, we have to make Dracut the destination. That's the only way we'll grow economically.
So with that said, our final area of conversation, charter review. You're on the...
I am on the charter review committee.
Where are we? How is that?
We are nearly finished. It's been a long process. We have been going through it with a fine-tooth comb. We have gone through every article and section and dissected it and diced it up, and I think this committee there's 5 people on it has done a very good job. Where now we have finished our full review. We're looking at it globally as a new document and putting together our thoughts, and then we will be sending that to the Board of Selectmen with our report. And I suspect it'll be a fairly large report of these are the changes that we think should be made, and here's our recommendation. And we intend to provide them a reasoning for for the changes. Okay. I have even assured some of the committee members who have disagreed with the change that they will also have a voice in that report as a dissenting voice. They'll have an area of the report that this is why I don't think we should have changed.
Okay. Any hints for our viewers, or would you rather wait?
No. Where the anticipation is that the Board of Selectmen will have it in August, maybe a little bit earlier, so they can have their own public hearing, and then hopefully, knock on wood, November town meeting, we'll be taking votes on it.
When you say changes, are we talking little tweaks, minor alterations?
Some are tweaks, some are fairly major. There is a recommendation to change our elected officials to every 2 years for a 2-year term. And not staggered, so everybody gets elected
up at the same time.
At the same time over a 2-year period. There's been a lot of discussion on that. And both sides bring up good points on it.
Have the votes been taken yet?
So it is a recommendation of the Charter Review Committee to do that. There is a dissenting voice, and in particular, I wanted to make sure that they have their dissenting voice and it's heard.
How many people on the committee?
There are 5.
5 of you. Okay, so that's relatively 4 to 1.
It was a 4 to 1.
Okay.
So it certainly it's going to be up to the Board of Selectmen to pass that forward. I mean, we even had discussions on, do we want to remain a town meeting form of government, or do we want to go to a city form of government with a city? Absolutely.
What was the result of that vote?
It was decided pretty much unanimously that we didn't believe the town was ready to go to that step.
Take the baby step of changing the election cycle.
I have to admit, I'm of the mind now that we should change to a city form of government.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, but it's not going to be one of the recommendations.
It will not be one of the recommended changes.
Right. What's the thinking? What's the logic behind having everybody up the same election cycle? Is that to spur interest?
To some degree, I think that's my reasoning, to spur interest. And oftentimes you hear people who are interested in running saying, "Well, I don't want to run against so and so," or "My friend is on the board right now, and I don't want to run against my friend." Mm-hmm. And if everybody's up at once, then it's, here's your one shot. You're not running against somebody at that point. You're running for a seat.
Sure.
And that's the way it should be. And I hope that generates more interest in running and also generates more interest in voting.
So all five seats, right?
5 seats in the selectmen, 5 seats in the school committee.
All would be up at the same
5
time.
seats in the library trustees. The moderator is only the one, of course, but.
Any local communities do that you can think of? Lowell used to when they were all at large. They still do with their districts now, but I can't. Tewksbury doesn't do it that way.
There is a community in Sudbury, maybe.
Okay.
I think there's 1 or 2 communities that do it that way. So that would also mean we would have to change our election period, essentially. So
somebody's seat would be affected right away, right?
Yeah, so there'd be a transition that we would need to do there. We would also have to hold our elections on odd-numbered years, much like Lowell does.
Why? So why is that? Because people in Lowell keep saying, "Why don't we just do it even-numbered years?" Is there a state requirement?
Because state and federal are on even-numbered years,
right.
and the state legislature doesn't want you voting in the same year as that they are on the same, typically on the same ballot. So I would also like to see Dracut's elections moved to November, but that's up to the selectmen through the bylaws.
Well, it sounds like
so they could do that right now.
Okay.
But you can't do it on an even numbered year to conflict with state and federal.
But it sounds like if you do that, you've moved even further towards the city model, right? The towns select their boards and school committees in the spring.
Typically.
Lowell, Lawrence, Methuen do theirs.
Right.
The cities do it in the fall. So, all right. So a lot of big things going on. A lot of big things
happening in Dracut. I'm certainly glad to be there in the mix, and the fact that that most people keep allowing me to be on these boards, I'm grateful for that. And the voice matters.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. I waited 3.5 years to get you in here. There's so much going on, though, that your next visit's going to come a lot sooner.
I hope so. This was very enjoyable.
All right. Thank you, Phil Th. As always, great to chat with you.
Thank you very much.
All right. We thank Phil Th. for joining us today. Of course, we thank you for tuning into the Daily Pulse every day. Tomorrow, we're going to talk a little bit elections, but more in the Lowell and statewide level, because City of Lowell Election Director Will Rosenberry will join former Mayor Bill Samaras and I here. We'll give you the upcoming election schedule. It's June 23rd today. September 1st is the primary, a very hotly contested primary. You've got gubernatorial candidates on the Republican side. You have U.S. Senate candidates on the Democratic side, and you've got some very competitive state rep races here in the city of Lowell. So we'll give you all those important dates, the registration information, the mail voting information, the early voting information, so you can be prepared, because it's coming up sooner than you think. So that's tomorrow on the Daily Pulse, the show that keeps its finger on the pulse of Lowell and the world around it. Till then, everybody stay safe, stay dry on what's shaping up to be a very damp Tuesday, and we will see you on the other side.